Listen here, me Gene. Dude, that video of that little kid with the Hulkster. Let me tell you something, Hulkster. I was like, that is amazing. That is amazing. That was, dude, that video made me so happy.
And he did rip the shirt.
Yeah, he did. I watched him. I was like, that kid is rad, dude. That kid is rad. Yeah, that's a future. That's a future WWE superstar.
He's training already.
Yeah, I like that. That was a good one, man. That was a good one. That one, and then the. Did you send it to me or did?
Probably Alex.
No, Izzy. Izzy sent it to me. So the one of the coach. Did I send that one to you?
I don't know what happened.
Because I sent it, Izzy sent it to me, and I sent it to a couple of people. It's from Twitter,
okay.
And it was this like Southern football coach.
Okay.
And he's got all these one-liners that he's dropping in interviews. Dude, and it's just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
All right.
I'll send it to you. Okay. I'll send it to you. Remind me when we're done, dude. But it's some funny ass shit.
Intense.
Yeah. Yeah, but dude, like you'll laugh.
All right.
You'll laugh. What did he say? One of them, he goes, I went to church on Sunday and my wife wouldn't go with me because she told me that she doesn't go out with losers.
Oh, God.
Like some shit like that. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So he's just dropping all these, dude. It's pretty funny. He goes, what do you say? He goes, he said, we kept fumbling the ball and giving it away. He goes, man, you fumble that ball, you got to get on it like a hobo on a ham sandwich. So just funny. Anyway, I'll send you.
I hope some of those kids that he's coaching are listening because they're going to be coaches. They got to pass that on.
Oh, yeah.
We got to keep those alive.
Well, a lot of the stuff you hear is not Darrell Lutz original. It's, I pulled from my coach Jim Ingram. Like, he's, fantastic.
That's always funny, huh? You always hear stories or hear someone who's aggressive or a badass or something, and then it's like, man, once you meet the younger guys, if they ever met that mentor, and then the mentor behind that, it's like, you can't compare. It's a
whole different
like, can you
level of
the kids that were purely coached by you
meeting Coach I,
right? You know what I mean? Like,
they would shit their pants.
We talk about generations and stuff.
They would shit their pants, like absolutely shit their pants. Because like I've mellowed out a ton. Like you get this. The coach you guys see here at the gym is super mellow, and you ask Evan, like because that's somebody that you work out with who was who I coached.
Right.
And like he goes, man, you're soft, like he jokes, whatever, Timmy, and yeah, it's a different level of intensity for sure. But yeah, man, I think about that like with the kids that I coached over the years, and some of the stuff like the way they'll respond, and I'm like, you guys have no idea. Have no idea. Like Coach I was nuts, bro. Like a good nuts. Like I loved Coach I. Like he was a dude, man. That was my dad away from my dad. And he was hard old school, just toughest dude you'd ever met. He's awesome. Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about intensity today, not necessarily in coaching, but as in training. This kind of came up yesterday in conversation I had. We got a couple new members at the gym here, and I was talking to one of them, and she was talking about, I've done this, and I worked out here, and I tried this different stuff, and it's always like they're always trying to throw more stuff at you, right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to put you through this circuit and you go over here and now go over there, run over there. And like, we don't give a shit what it looks like. Just move around a bunch, right? Like half an hour, just fucking freak out, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, basically, that's it. And it's
I did that at an Equinox before.
And it's like, oh, we got you hooked up to this heart rate monitor and your heart rate's at 190, but you're not doing anything, like you're just basically just got your heart rate elevated. Great.
Exactly.
Good for you. There's no true purpose to your training.
I think
so.
I had it like, we were using bands in one of the stations.
Uh-huh.
You know, you got to go and hit a target or something like that. And you just do that over and over. That was one of the stations. And I don't know, but I was like, all right. It's like, I'm breathing hard.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of fun if you just kind of let go right. I don't think I was supposed to do that, but anyway.
Dude in charge looking at Mike like, God damn, this fool.
Who brought him?
Yep.
Who brought him?
Yeah, so I was talking to her yesterday, and I was like, look, what we do, isn't always this, like, I'm not going to throw a million different things at you just to, exactly that, get your heart rate up and just burn a shit ton of calories really fast, or, there's a purpose to everything that we do. And this was yesterday, a day that all we did yesterday at the gym was deadlift. It was 8 working sets of deadlifts, right? So we had longer rest breaks, and it was, small reps. So we're trying to increase our workload as we go, and we're working on technique and form and whatever. And it was her first day of deadlifting. So I'm just kind of teaching her off to the side how to deadlift as the rest of the class is doing their thing. And so we're going through, and she goes, man, I like this, where there's...
I'll flip this so we can see it, but keep talking.
Okay. You want to stare at yourself? That's cool. What was I saying? So, yeah, I'm talking to her. I said, yeah, our focus today is just that deadlift, right? And just because you are, doing just that one thing doesn't mean that you're not getting work in, right? We have our purpose today is to pick up some heavy weight and do it correctly, right? And she said, okay, that's cool. I get it. And she said, well, it kind of came down to, well, that person is lifting more weight, so they must be working harder than me. And I said, no. That's not the way that it works, right? And I said intensity works and is relative to each individual person, right? I'll use Mike and Todd. Mike and Mike, when I were talking about this earlier, I'll use Mike and Todd as an example. If you guys don't know Todd, he's a member here at the gym. I think his heaviest deadlift is 530, 550, somewhere in that range, right? Mike, he's got a deadlift a little over 300 pounds now, right? Respectable, awesome. But if you look at the two of them and they're deadlifting next to each other doing their sets and reps, who's going to have more weight on the bar? Todd is. Does that mean that Todd is working harder than Mike? No. But a lot of people get that in their head as to, if I'm lifting next to Mike and he's got more weight on the bar, well, he's got to be working harder than me. It's not the way it works, right? It's relative to each individual person. And with that being said, it's changes from workout to workout, right? Like the intensity that you're working at changes from workout to workout. And this is something that I was explaining to her too. As a coach or as a trainer and the person who's programming these workouts, and you guys that are members at the gym that are listening to this, or cast iron members, you guys kind of get it because you kind of see the way that I program stuff, and not every day is meant to kill you. You shouldn't have that in your training. You can't have that in your training.
Yeah, I mean,
like your body can only take so much. That's, Rachel and I joke about it all the time. It's like, I lift and program my own workouts based off of feel. And what I mean by that is, like, I can push myself pretty hard, pretty intense for 2, maybe 3 days in a row. And then it's like, I got to throttle back. And I usually don't even push myself hard for 3 days in a row. It's usually a couple days, kind of an easier day, start to ramp it back up a little bit, because your body can only recover from so much stress, not just like on your muscles, but like your central nervous system, right? I mean, and you've probably done that before, like between training here and running.
Right. I was just thinking about
to where you've pushed hard. I'm going to fucking run my nuts off, and I'm going to run fucking this distance 5 days in a row. Right. And then by the 5th day, you're like, why can't I finish this run? Why are my times a minute slower per mile? Right.
Or I think about, I got to give myself a little bit of a break because maybe we just did heavy squats,
Right.
And the next day I try to go run, it's like, well, I'm working on other things too. So it's not a pure rested, body that's going out there and running.
Right. Right.
Kind of like how we just did those deadlifts, and then I'm going to hit my 6 miles tomorrow.
I bet you it'd be good.
Hopefully.
If not, I don't want to hear about it.
I'm not going to tell you.
No.
I'll just post last week's again.
I swear Mike is wearing the same shit.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Running me, and I'm working on other things. A lot of stuff, obviously, here. You know, I mean, I'm 90% in here, and then one day I run. So
Right.
I just got to take all that into account too.
Right. And that's where I don't think people do that enough. Right. And they don't understand the intensity thing. Right. And I say that like within the gym community more than like a cast iron community, because like with something like that, you're doing it more on your own. But if you are doing cast iron workouts type of stuff, like our programming, like in a 24-hour setting, you're taking our workouts and doing them somewhere else. It's still easy to get caught up if I'm on a bench press and I look over and see another guy on a bench press and go, oh man, that guy's got more weight. He's got to be working harder. I'm a piece of shit. You know, it's everything is relative to you, right? And it's relative to the weight that you're pushing, the speed that you're moving at compared to your heaviest weight you can lift, and the fastest you can go, not the fastest Mike can go or Rachel can go or whoever, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people don't really recognize, right? And, you know, it goes back to like the different types of training that I was talking about is that's how people get suckered into a lot of the gimmicky type of workout programs or smaller gyms and stuff that are out there now, or chain gyms that are out there now that are doing the stuff.
Or like personal trainers who wipe you out and then
and
you psychologically feel, well, that must be good. You know, I can't
Right.
walk tomorrow, you know. So.
Right. And it's the, did you puke today? Yeah. Well, fuck, you must have worked out really hard. That's not the goal, man.
No?
It's not the goal. But so many people think that way. And that's where like that, like what I was getting at is there's so many different programs and gyms out there now that do everything. It's based off your heart rate. Well, you were in the red zone for fucking 7 minutes. So you know what that means. You kicked ass today.
Means your heart was going fast.
Yeah, good. You fucking flailed around with 5-pound dumbbells and ankle weights on. Great job. Great fucking job. I can elevate my heart rate dancing around the fucking gym like a fucking Fruit Loop for 10 minutes, and I can elevate my fucking heart rate. You know, but am I doing myself any good? No.
Right.
You know, so again, it comes back to the intensity that you're working out with a purpose too. You know, because intensity can be there, but if I'm not doing something that serves a purpose, right? And that's where, like, I like to think of working out as training, not exercising. Exercising to me, yeah, it's just that, get my heart rate up. Who gives a shit what I'm doing?
Yeah, move around a little bit.
Yeah, training is a different story, man. Training is one where each thing that you are doing has a purpose. And that's the way I look at the way, like, I program workouts for you guys, right? For the gym, for the cast iron, is like everything has a purpose to balance your body as a whole, right? To make you stronger, make you more fit, make you a harder to kill individual, right? Like, let's be real, right? Like, we're trying to prolong life and keep you as healthy as possible for as long as possible, and hopefully help you look better naked, right? And it all has a purpose. It's not just about heart rate. It's not just about flopping around with your intensity super high, you know, doing Zumba, band, whatever.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Yeah. So when you are looking at your training, right, and you are looking at what other people are doing, don't base what they're doing off the intensity you think you're working at. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I kind of think of, you know, we just talked about it, but control. So, you know, I'm thinking of the dumbbell rows. You know, not obviously a fast exercise. You want to be controlled. So that versus, you know, and I sweat, you know, and I'll my breath, my heart rate will get up when I'm doing that. So comparing that to just in general, like you said, getting your heart rate up, can somebody who's doing just the flopping around and get your heart rate up have the same control with the strength, that somebody who's doing the dumbbell row?
Probably not.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, the purpose and the function.
Right.
And what you're able to actually do useful. Instead of just always being really good at getting in that red zone.
Right. Right. And that's okay. So
but yeah, those rows, I think of the control instead of just yanking,
right.
and then letting it fall down.
Right. And that's a good it's a good one to reference, right? Because how many times do you hear me correcting people on that?
All the time.
Right. You get people that do their lawnmower start where they're like, get this big old rip, yank, drop down super fast. And awesome. You can flop around with a weight in your hand. There's no, you're not really lifting that weight. You're not controlling that weight that you use, and you're not getting the most benefit out of that movement that you could. Yeah, no, that's a good reference. Good reference. Good job, Mike. Look,
2 for 2. Let's go.
Tell you what, bud. Tell you what. Yeah, man. So, with a lot of stuff that people do, right? Like you talk about intensity levels, right? Or like within the weightlifting community, you hear RPE, rate of perceived exertion, right? How hard am I working on a scale of 1 to 10? If I ask you, okay, are you working at, a 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, where are you working at today, right? And that is based off of you and you alone, right? It's based off of how you feel going through it. There's workouts that you'll do. Say you and I do a workout next to each other. We could have a workout where I'm coasting through it and I'm breathing easy and it's just beating the shit out of you. And you're using the proper weight for you. I'm using the proper weight for me. Now, on the flip of that, we could do a workout tomorrow where those roles are completely reversed. Just based off of those movements, what we're doing, the grouping, whatever it is, and you can't base it off of anybody else. Your RPE and mine are going to be completely different, right? So you have to be able to gauge that on an individual basis, right? And that's hard. Like I said, that's a hard thing for people to do and to understand, right? And I'll go back to that, talking about like the bigger gyms that have the heart rate classes and this and that. And like I said, that's where they sell people. That's where they get a lot of people hooked, is like people will walk in for the first time and they see this and they're like, man, these people are fucking flying around. Yeah. They're going crazy. There's monkeys swinging from the fucking ceiling.
It's entertaining.
Exactly. And they're like, wow, this must be really good. This must be really good for you. Right?
Well, it's tough because they're able to put numbers on these things, and then they get to tell you what those numbers mean.
Right.
And if you believe them, then that's the sale.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm thinking about when I told you I went to play with my nephews the other day, and I sit down in the catcher position, and I'm like, holy shit, I could do this all day. I could sit in this, and I've never felt that in my life before.
Right.
So to me, that was the purpose. Things like that are where it's at when you talk about, living longer and healthier, being able to do things like that, or my equipment being lighter today, you know, these everyday movements and ability to be strong in life.
Right.
I don't know what my zones are for my heart or anything like that, or how often I hit them, but I know that I could do everything that I need to do physically better because of these workouts. Right.
And that's one of those things too, like, you start to understand this stuff, right? You start to understand intensity, and you start to understand how you can make each individual workout harder based on that, right? And that's something, you hear a lot, and, you guys that train at the gym hear a lot of, okay, this part of the workout is going to make or break your workout today. How hard you run is going to mean if this is going to be easy or hard. How fast you pedal on that bike today. How much weight you have on your bar, how many reps you do before you stop a set. You know, if you have a set number of things to do, that's what's going to make or break your workout. That's going to push your intensity up or down based off of that speed or weight, right? And the more you do that, the more you start to understand that it doesn't necessarily mean I have to do all this shit. It just means that I need to be able to increase my intensity for that one thing that I'm working on, that one thing that I'm doing at that set time. You know, so ladies and gentlemen, you don't need a ton of shit to get an intense workout.
Right. And, you know, ideally there's consistency and that body part will come back around when it. You know,
yeah, for sure. I mean, and
be progressive with the workouts. And
and that just gets into like programming, right? Like that's a whole nother topic, but you know, that gets into you should squat, press, deadlift, you know, pull, like all the things that you should be doing. You should be moving fast. You should be moving slow. Like all the different things that I consider, like when I'm programming stuff, like, yeah, you should be doing all that stuff, but you don't need to do it all every single day.
Right.
You know?
I mean, there's been days I could relate to what that person said in terms of maybe not being able to gauge, you know, what's going on or thinking that you feel it, but then that probably goes back to intensity. You know, and then what was I going to say? I forgot the other point. But, yeah, you know, a couple years ago, I remember coming in here and just feeling that it's like, am I getting, you know, but I didn't know as much as I do now.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't frustrating or anything, but it was just like, I didn't feel too much there or whatever, you know.
Right. And part of that has to do, like, with what I was saying, like, when you have somebody else programming for you, hopefully they're taking into consideration, well, yesterday, the intensity level or the RPE should have been at 8, 9, or a 10. Well, today I'm going to give them something where even if they want to push hard, their intensity level has to be at a 5.
Yeah.
Just because I know, like, your body needs that. You know, it needs that. You know, and that's something that people need to consider also. Like if you're doing stuff on your own and you're making up your own workouts and you know which is cool, like if you're into that, like a lot of people love it and that's awesome. If you are doing that, recognize and realize that your body is only gonna be able to take so much before it breaks down, right? Or it won't recover or allow you to do the things that you want it to do. Like as much will as you have in the world, like recovery has to happen, right? It has to. And that's where, like, the Russians are crazy. Russians are batshit crazy. Like, and what I mean by that is I just think of the Russian squat program, that Smolov that Rachel and I had done, and, you know, 13-week squat program where you're squatting 4 days a week and it's heavy squats. Like, that mentally and physically broke me. Like I couldn't eat enough, I couldn't sleep enough. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy. You know, but that just shows like, and I consider myself a pretty determined person, pretty disciplined person, a pretty driven person. Like there were days where like that shit broke me, dude.
Got tested.
Yeah. And it was more about the physical, like where I'm like, dude, I can barely do a body weight squat, and I'm supposed to squat at 90% of my max today, you know. So, Russians are crazy. If you ever do any sort of Russian or Bulgarian lifting program,
run.
Number one, you're a psychopath. Number one, you're a psychopath, and like we'd probably be friends, you know. But it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be really intense, and it's gonna be really hard to recover from. And that's the stuff like be aware, be scared, you know, like just and know going into stuff like that, like lie about things. If they ask you your max, don't give them the truth. Tell them it's lower than what it is.
100 pounds.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. So I think that's, you know, a pretty good message though for people to take away today is, you know, with training with intensity, that's where your results are definitely going to come from. You know, is like how hard you're pushing yourself for the stuff that you are doing. and realizing that your intensity is your intensity.
Yeah, and I remember what I was gonna say earlier. Just real quick, for me psychologically, some days I think I feel it, but then once I get to the gym, it just isn't. The connection isn't there with the workout in terms of that intensity.
Yeah,
it happens, and
I think that goes both ways.
And sometimes I surprise myself, and I'm like, huh, yeah.
Right, and I'll use like the David Goggins on this. Like, I've done this on runs before, where I'm like, oh, I feel like a fucking can of smashed assholes, right? And I'm gonna go out and I gotta run today. And then and I'll use the David Goggins approach. All right, just tell yourself you're gonna do a couple miles, and then I'll hit that 2 mile mark. I'm like, I feel good. And all of a sudden, that 2 turns into like
kind of builds up.
An 8 or a 10 mile run, and I'm like, all right. But there's days also where like I'm like, yeah, today's gonna be a 10-mile run day, and I get out there and the first mile feels like shit, second mile feels like shit, third mile feels like shit, and I'm like, let's shut it down.
Yeah.
You've got to understand like the days to push, when not to push, and yeah.
I think for me the distance cap is what helps me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could fluctuate like that because I don't trust myself in terms of always doing what I could.
End up at the drive-through.
Right. So if I tell myself, I have this goal to this destination, that's, so my 6 mile run or whatever, whether I walk or run, I'm getting 6 miles.
Just get there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then for me, that helps. But yeah, I could relate to that feeling of.
Yeah. And I know for me, I get and I think this is for a lot of people, and this is kind of a good message to end on this one is, we're talking all this stuff about intensity and recovery, and you usually have more in you than what you think, right? And usually once you start, you're going to be able to do more than what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying, I use the running as an example. Like I'll go out and okay, just do at least a couple miles. And once I get to that point, I'm like, you've got more in you.
Yeah.
You can go, right? And I think for most people, they need to do that. They need to take that approach of like, hey man, I'm tired, I'm sore, I'm beat up, but you're going to get more out of just doing something. That doesn't mean it has to be your RPE of 10. It just means do something that day. And I tell people that, like, when they come to the gym here, you're tired, you don't want to show up to the gym, show up and just do the warm up. Hey, maybe that's the day where you come in and say we're deadlifting. It's supposed to be a heavy deadlift day. You come in and just work on some practice and some technique, and you play around with your stance a little bit that day. You're still doing something. You're still building some discipline, So I think today we're going to leave you guys with that. If you guys have any questions for us, shoot us an email, castironworkouts@gmail.com. You guys can, send us a direct message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Like us on all those. Follow us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, all of them. Give us a review, guys. It helps. Share this with your friends, your family, people you like, people you don't like. Tell us how the episodes are so much better without Rachel these days. And hopefully we'll have Rachel back soon. And we got a real special episode coming up for you guys pretty soon here too. So keep an eye out for it. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We'll see you.